I decided that I would give the baccalaureate degree to those who love their neighbor. People who live on the floor above, the house next door, the in-laws, the family members, the co-workers, fellow church members, and members of our own family. I will never forget when, after a long period of schism and separation, Ken Gill and those of us who love him returned to this sanctuary for the first time. We'd been worshiping in the Hebrew synagogue. And Ken was gracious enough to invite me to participate in the service of communion. I will never forget that. Our first Sunday back, there was so much love and so much joy, people coming forward to receive the elements with tears in their eyes. It's not easy to love the people who are closest to us, who are constantly invading our space. I would give the high school diploma to those who have learned to love themselves. That's not easy, is it? Especially as we get older. I become so impatient with myself. I keep doing inept, clumsy things, and then I berate myself. But Jesus said, love others as you love yourself. Without the love of self, it all goes down the drain. We need to replace what Ken called negative tapes. Some psychologists, I don't know how they figured it out, says that every one of us has approximately 300 negative thoughts a day. Self-put-down, self-criticism, things that take away your sense of confidence and well-being. And Ken, I think, was suggesting a short while back that we learn to replace the negative tapes with positive messages. This is sort of silly, but when I feel very small and rather lost, I think of Jesus blessing the children. He called them to come, and he took them up in his arms and he blessed them. I have this mental exercise in which Charlie becomes one of the little children. And I imagine the most kind, loving man who ever walked the face of the earth, reaching out with his arms, holding me close to his breast, and giving me a blessing. And my goodness, how that drives the negative thoughts to flight. When Jesus was baptized, there was the descending of the dove, do you remember? And the words came from heaven, "Thou art my beloved Son, and you is my delight." I will never match Jesus' goodness or his passion. Never, never. But I can embrace those words because I believe with all my heart God says that kind of thing to every single one of us if we will only listen. You are my beloved. In you, I take delight. That's the bad news. We are called as followers of Jesus Christ to love the enemy, the stranger, the irritable neighbor, and ourselves. And the task seems so overwhelming. Maybe it helps, it's helped me to think about love not as a feeling primarily, but as a commitment. I owe this thought to Scott Peck, the well-known psychiatrist. Scott Peck says, love is not primarily a feeling, it's a commitment. And it's the way we act when we don't feel very loving that makes all the difference. I don't know about you, but I equated love with a feeling. And of course, it's not possible to love anyone all the time, is it? I don't think so. And so many people, when they come to the place, I'm thinking of marriages now, where they don't feel loving toward their partner, they say, it must be over. And over again, one will say to the other, I want a divorce because I don't think I love you anymore. And Scott Peck says, it's when the honeymoon is over, that's when the work of love begins. It's what you do, how you act, when you don't feel very loving. That's the test of love, because love is a commitment. Harold DeWolf, a theologian, used to say to his classes, he taught at the seminary, that the greatest challenge to his theology came not from the college, university students, but from the preschoolers. He helped his wife to teach on Sunday morning. And he illustrated. On a given Sunday, Harold was in the playroom area and the children were playing, and he noticed that one little girl who was riding a bicycle, a stationary bike, I guess, got pushed off and knocked to the floor by a boy named Billy. Harold DeWolf did the most loving thing when he picked up the little girl, held her close, and gave her comfort. And finally, in the midst of her distress, the little girl asked the theologian, does God love Billy when he acts like that? Searching deep within himself, Dr. DeWolf came up with a beautiful answer. Yes, but God loves him in sadness. And when Billy does something to make somebody else happy, make them smile, then God loves him in gladness. So you see, love is a commitment, and it can involve all kinds of feelings. I'm sure there are days in the life of my dear wife Lois when she loves me in sadness. There are considerable days when she loves me in anger. But I will never forget or be able to repay her commitment during the times of trouble, when otherwise I would have been all alone. Lois has been a rock and a fortress. When we are called to love people who are unlovable, it helps to remember all the times when you and I received love, even though we didn't deserve it. That's why we're here this morning. I really like the word grace over love. For one thing, love is open to so many interpretations. But the grace that you and I have received from God makes all the difference when we are facing our strangers and our enemies and our irritating neighbors. It makes all the difference to remember all those times when we most needed love and least deserved it. That was when God brought love into our lives. If you think about it, you'll find that that's true for you. St. Paul was filled with hatred. His name was Saul. On one occasion, he held the garments of the men who stoned Stephen, the first Christian martyr, to death. Saul was there. Then on the road to Damascus, you know it well, he was struck with blindness, and for a time he was helpless. And then he heard a voice, and his life changed. He changed his name from Saul to Paul, and in place of the hatred, he found love. And everywhere he went, he used the word grace. Grace to you, grace to you. You know what he was saying? May God give you better than you deserve, because that's what happened to me. And if it happened to me, it can happen to you. The bad news is that we're called to love all these unlovable people. The good news is that when we know ourselves to be most unlovely and most unlovable, that's when the love of God surrounds us.